Hello and welcome everyone to our first session of SBL. Yesterday, what we did was we had a brief introduction and we understood how exactly are we going to tackle the subject, how exactly is the batch going to roll. But I'm sure when you pick up a subject which is as unique as SBL, at some point in time, the first question that will come to your mind is what exactly is this subject all about and what are they going to test me on? When you take up a subject like SBR, for example, I don't think that is ever a concern because strategic business reporting is a subject that deals with financial reporting in a greater level of detail. You know what is going to come your way. If you have taken advanced taxation, you know that the discussion is going to involve tax laws and tax planning in different scenarios. But those papers are super specific in terms of what the syllabus is and what the expectation by the examiner also is. But in a subject like strategic business leader, SBL, you should know that this is a subject, as I said yesterday, a subject which is a 360-degree overview of your ACCA syllabus. And this is the penultimate goal of your journey, that in your professional career as well as in your journey as a student, once you have understood everything and you have risen to the top, do you have what it takes to successfully navigate organizations and help them overcome challenges by demonstrating that you are a true leader? So, the skills that you are expected to demonstrate as you grow in your career, this specific paper by ACCA is going to build all those skills, although in a theoretical manner, but it is going to equip you for everything in terms of work and leadership that is going to come your way. Now, like any other ACCA paper, this is also a 100 marks exam. Okay, this is a 100 marks paper which has 80 technical marks and then there are 20 marks for professional skills. The exam duration is 3 hours 15 minutes, which includes reading, planning, and reflection time. So, your analysis, your thinking, your reading, everything has to be completed in those 3 hours 15 minutes. Some time ago, and by that I mean around 2 years ago, this was a 4-hour exam. Now they have made certain changes and they have reduced the duration to 3 hours 15 minutes. In your paper, you will get three tasks. Each task will have multiple subparts. Usually, two or three subparts are there in each task. You are given a particular role. Say, for example, in a question, you might be a person who you might be the CEO or you might be the manager, and a particular situation will be given to you. And they have asked you, and they will be asking you if you will have to put yourself in the shoes of that person, and then you will have to basically be a problem solver and lead the organization to the next level. The entire exam is in the form of an integrated case study where, see, assignments will change from session to session. It's not like in SBR, for example, in consolidation, you know that there's a 30-mark question, section A, which is only on consolidation. In AAA, you know that there is a question which will specifically focus on risk of material misstatement and all of that. SBL is not exactly structured like that, although there are certain common traits that I have been able to put together by looking at all the past papers. But basically, this is a paper that expects you to think on your feet and deliver. To clear the paper, you need to score 50 marks out of 100. And it's not a very difficult task, let me tell you. And I'll repeat again, there are three tasks, each having two or three subparts. Now, how exactly are you supposed to approach the paper? I would say you should devote around 30-35 minutes at best for reading, planning, and reflection. See, SBL is not a paper which is technical in that sense, but you cannot just read a question and launch yourself into writing the answer. You read a question and you start typing and you do calculations. It is not that kind of a paper. You will have to read the requirements first. That is always my recommendation for all the students. Read the requirement first and summarize the requirement. Maybe, in the scratch pad or in the rough part, just write down the requirement in short and then start reading the tasks. Okay. So my recommendation always is, instead of reading the pre-seen material, then the exhibit and then the task, always read the task first so that your mind gets automatically ready, that if the question is on leadership or if the question is on strategic drift or the question is on some finance related aspect, you have now trained your eyes and brain to pick up necessary information to fulfill that requirement in the task. So that means when you are reading also, you are doing a planned and well thought of reading. You are not just skimming through it like it were a magazine. You have to ensure that you read the requirement first, summarize the requirement in one line, and then train your eyes to only pick up the relevant information. When you are reading and picking up the relevant information, make sure that you are scribbling all important points, whatever you feel is important at that point in time. It might happen that by the time you actually start drafting the answer, that point might have lost its relevance because of some other information that has come to light later. But that should not deter you from making copious notes. The 30 minutes time, I would say, has to be spent in planning the answer. What all you are going to write in which requirement, what are the words that you are going to choose, all of that has to be planned. And then spend time on writing the final answer, drafting the final answer. It's best to have, like a, I would call it a cheat sheet. See, what happens is when you read the requirement and then you go to the exhibits, you tend to pick up a lot of critical points, but all of those are in your head. And if you don't type it out, if you don't write it on your rough sheet, then there is a possibility that out of 10 relevant points that you have found out, you might end up missing out on 3 or 4 points, and unnecessarily you will end up losing marks. So, you make sure that you scribble that carefully. Also, see, there are 20 professional marks, and I'm going to get into what those 20 professional marks are. But see, those marks are allocated for how you frame your answer. That is not the technical content. The 20 marks are a tool to unlock the 80 marks. How exactly that works, we'll discuss that soon. Now, as I always, be it SBL, be it SBR, be it any paper in the ACCA journey, my instruction always is read the requirement first. In your examination window, when you open the exhibit, you have the facility to highlight certain points. So if there are words that you feel are critical, if there are sentences that you feel are required to, add more of a gravitas to the situation, underline that or highlight that with, the yellow highlighting tool, so that when you are, revisiting the parts again, you know exactly what you should be focusing on, and your attention does not get diverted into something that is unnecessary. Now, when you go into your computer based examination at the examination center, or you are writing it at home, you will get a word processing document, where all the answers have to be written. In certain cases, in rare situations, where you have to present certain calculations, for example, a couple of ratios or, basic calculations, you might get a spreadsheet application. And in some questions, they often ask you to prepare a slide and accompanying notes for that slide. So you will get a slide like window in the CBE platform where you have to type out whatever points are there. Now, in this word processor, in this slide, you can make the text bold. You can use italics. You can, use bullet points wherever required. You can change the indentation and all of that. So, because see, this is a paper where some places they will ask you to make slides, some places they will ask you to make a report, and it has to have a certain format. It has to appear in a certain way, and if it has to appear that way, those basic editing tools are very much a part of your examination window. So don't worry about that. Once you have how you plan your answer is, see, what I do, if there is a 20 mark task that they have given you, then the main requirement is always written in bold. Make sure that you read the main requirement and you try to shorten it, so that on one piece of answer sheet you have all the 4 5 tasks written one below the other. Benefits of, and how do you summarize that? Benefits of e-marketing. The whole paragraph might be a long one, but what is the crux? What are you looking at? You're looking at benefits of e-marketing, or what are the problems with having a two-tier board? There will be a preamble, there will be a lot of background info, then the task, and then the allocation of marks. You don't need all of that. When you are reading at the first instance, you need the requirement in short, disadvantages of this structure. End of story. Then you think about, okay, if they are talking about a two-tier board, then go back to that chapter in your head, see if there are specific models in your SBL syllabus that you can refer to. Like if you are doing a competitive analysis, or if you're doing a stakeholder analysis, uh, Do you need to go back to the matrix, Mendelow's matrix, and do that kind of classification? Is that required in the question? If not this model, is there another model that is more applicable? You will have to think of all of that and then give a framework of your answer and then apply that particular model or that particular approach. See, ACCA has very clearly told us that it's not compulsory for you to refer to any model. Okay, that's not a compulsory requirement, but you should avoid the pitfall of referring to a wrong model just because you felt a compulsive need to do it. As long as you have the ability to convince the examiner that what you are saying is right, there is no other expectation from you that you have to compulsorily apply a particular model. Unless, of course, the question specifically says that use Porter's five forces, or it specifically tells you to use the BCG matrix. The important part in all P-level papers is the professional skill marks. Now understand why ACCA has introduced these professional skill marks. See, they are not preparing you just for the exams. They know that after you have written your exams and you have successfully qualified, you will be working, and at work you might sometimes be asked to prepare a slide deck. Sometimes you might have to send a report to the senior manager. Sometimes you might have to write to the client. Sometimes you might have to work on a press release. So are you equipped with the right skills to put all of that together in a format that is understandable by the stakeholder? Are you able to look at the situation and analyze it in all its entirety and then give a equi- and then give a solution that best suits the facts of the case without doing injustice to any of the stakeholders present? So tomorrow they know that your theoretical skills will play a role, but how you navigate yourself at workplace is also going to have a very important part in your success at the workplace, which is why these professional skills have been introduced in all the papers. Remember, these are not an add-on. Okay, they are basically they are a part of your answer. You don't get marks for communication skill unless you have written the main answer. But if the question specifically tells you that we want this in the form of a report or we want a slide deck, and if you make a slide deck accordingly, that is when you will get marks. So the professional skills will help you to unlock the technical marks. There are five professional skills that are there in all the P level papers except SBR. These are communication, analysis, evaluation, commercial acumen, and skepticism. In other ACCA papers, analysis and evaluation is often presented as a single skill. In SBL, there are five professional skills that you need to master. We'll understand all these in detail. See, there are total five skills which are tested. Each skill is worth 4 marks, and one requirement usually tests you on one professional skill. For example, they have asked you to prepare a report. In that case, they have specifically mentioned that we'll be testing you on communication skill, which means the dominant skill there is how you are preparing the format, what kind of information you are putting across. It doesn't mean that the other skills are not important. Naturally, your ability to analyze the situation, your ability to evaluate the circumstances, and then give a combined assessment, all of that is important. But each task will have one dominant skill that is getting tested. Now, when it comes to the first skill, that is communication, a part of the communication skill is about using the correct format. There are different formats, and we'll be having separate videos made for different professional skills. But understand that the basic requirement that ACCA has from you is that A, use the correct format. If it is a letter, use a letter format. If it is a memo, use a memo format. Make sure that you understand who is your audience. Now, if you are explaining to the CEO of the company and you have presented the BCG matrix, now see, the CEO is a person who is several levels above you, and he is at that position, which means you don't have to explain to him why or what is the BCG matrix per se. He only needs an analysis. It's like, telling the CFO what is the meaning of weighted average cost of capital. It doesn't make sense. He knows it. So what ACCA wants you to do is it wants you to be aware of the level of audience, who is the intended recipient of that communication, and are you able to structure and present points accordingly? Do you have the ability to convince the other person in a concise manner without, beating around the bush? That is basically what the communication skill expects in your SBL paper, format being a very important part of it. Then second skill that they focus on is analysis. Now, to analyze does not mean to describe. And through all the past examiner reports that I have gone through, I think one point that has been raised every single time by the examiners is students just describe the situation. They don't want you to describe. Say, for example, I get the past reports of my last set of batches. Okay. And now somebody is asking me, analyze the performance of your students. I cannot, they don't expect me to write down that out of 100 people who appeared for ATX, 60 cleared, and out of 100 people who appeared for SBR, 70 cleared. That data is already there. How can you dig deeper? For example, the kind of analysis they would want is, out of the people who cleared, how many of them wrote mocks and cleared? People who did not clear, did they not write mocks? Is there a correlationship between writing mocks and the pass percentage? So this is the strength of the relationship that we are trying to understand. So that is analysis. Describing is basically saying that out of 100 people who wrote, 60 cleared. But analysis is understanding the reasons, not just describing the detail or not just describing the scenario, understanding why it took place. If you are using ratios, what is the significance of those ratios? What is that telling you? Do you have the ability to correlate different pieces of information given in that exhibit? For example, the rising number of customer complaints could also be connected with higher customer service department cost, or poor quality of material, or material return ratio could be connected with overall complaints that you are getting from customers. So are you able to draw those meaningful relationships between different data points? That is what the skill of analysis is primarily testing you on. I mean, what comes to my mind most often is that in the October, November, December quarter, when students are appearing for the December exam, the number of students appearing is less. Now, how I would analyze that is, see, just stating that the number of students appearing is less in this quarter is description. Analysis is, this quarter there are many festivals, and which is why people might not be writing their exams. So, doing that analysis and coming to a conclusion is what this skill is all about. Evaluation, it basically expects you to do a balanced, well-reasoned decision making that considers multiple stakeholder perspectives, risk-return trade-offs, and ethical implications within resource and implementation constraints. When they say balanced assessment, see, in today's day and age, and specifically in the SBL paper, you should not be looking only at the financial parameters. Non-financial performance indicators play an equally important role. Are you able to analyze, are you able to evaluate a situation in its entirety and not just from a financial perspective? Are you able to prioritize what the company needs to do as action points in a particular case? And one topic, that we will be taking up at a later stage is the suitability, acceptability, feasibility analysis. When you are giving a particular recommendation within the financial, technical, political, legal parameters, is it possible for you to execute the assignment? That comes under feasibility analysis, and that is what the evaluation skill tests you on. Professional skepticism as a skill, in my opinion, is something that all professional accountants need to possess, whether they are in the audit profession or not. Basically, the skepticism skill expects that you should have the ability to question every data point that is given to you. That means if somebody has given you financial projections, or if somebody has given you idea that we are going to expand into XYZ territory, and we are projecting a growth of 10% and we are expecting a tax rate of 30%. If you are talking about the skill of skepticism, the first question you should ask is, why are you saying that the tax rate will remain the same each year? Don't you think the tax rate is supposed to change depending on the government change of rules and regulations? So that is questioning the 30% tax assumption. Or in the data given to you, there might be some missing elements. There could be a possibility of a bias in the sense that, maybe there is a close personal relationship which is impairing your ability to do the job properly. Are there any alternative perspectives possible apart from what is given in the question as the most obvious response to that situation? So that is professional skepticism. And commercial acumen basically means being sensible in business. Basically, having that typical Bania mindset where the action that you are doing, is it going to help or hinder the business? For that, you will have to do a cost benefit analysis. You will have to contrast the risks against the opportunities available. You will have to understand, you will have to have that understanding of what my competitors are doing, how are the internal and external forces functioning, and what impact could that possibly have on the way I am doing things and the response of my business to a particular situation. And then, of course, industry intelligence. This is basic awareness of the world in which we operate, although they don't expect you to be updated with current affairs. But basically, being business smart is what commercial acumen is all about. Now, one unique thing that happens in the SBL exam is, this is something which only the SBL exam offers, which is basically they provide you with the pre-seen material. Now, let me take you back to how the ACCA SBL exam used to be earlier. Earlier, what used to happen was you would have a question, you would have like a 4 hour examination where the first 1 hour, you would end up reading the background information about the company, the industry, different types of graphs, press releases and website extracts, and everything would be given to you in the paper along with specific exhibits and tasks. And it had become a 4 hour exam. Now, what they do is they 15 days before the SBL exam, ACCA releases a 13-14 page document which is known as the pre-seen material. Now, what is this pre-seen material? Basically, this is a document which gives you background information of the industry in which this company is operating, wherein, say, for example, last quarter, they had the meal kit business. What was the meal kit business? In that particular, so like ready-made boxes of ready to make foods and all of that. So they first gave a description of the industry, who are the big players, what is the economy like, what are the labor conditions like, are there any laws and regulations surrounding that. So they gave a full-fledged background information about that particular industry. Then what they did after that was, then they gave you information about the company. First the industry, then the company. Like right now, the ACCA EdTech industry in India, that is the industry information that runs for around 4 to 5 pages. Then they give information about specific company like Byju's or XYZ company, for example. They'll give you information about that company, its customer profile, its distribution method, its cost, its risks, its opportunities, the website extracts, financial extracts. They'll give you all of that. And 15 days before the paper, when this 15-page document is released, what you are expected to do is you are expected to read through that entire document and make copious notes and analyze that document. This is summarize it and put it together succinctly in your head. And on the examination day, when you go to the SBL exam, when you log in, that pre-seen information is always there, which you have already analyzed, by the way. Then you will be given certain exhibits. These exhibits contain some more information, and then you have additional, that those exhibits are additional information, and then there are tasks that have to be followed. Now, remember one thing, you cannot carry your pre-seen material analysis into the examination hall, but you can keep all those points in mind when you are actually writing the paper. Now, this pre-seen material, as I told you, it first talks about industry information and then it talks about organization information like market dynamics and regulatory framework and who are all the major players and economic influences. See, it's an entirely fictitious situation, and they paint like a full background story for you, followed by specific information about the organization. And then, of course, what you are expected to do is you are, see, when you go through the pre-scene, when you sit down to analyze that, we'll have to make a detailed analysis of, say, for example, Porter's five forces analysis, doing that competitive analysis, or splitting the stakeholders into different categories, or using the BCG matrix, something like this. So have a thorough research done, analyze the numbers, put it together in one place, and armed with this knowledge, then you are supposed to write the answers to the requirements based on the exhibits that are given. Remember, pre-seen information is just the foil, it's the cover. The real source of answering the questions is the exhibit that is given to you, and the answers have to be developed on the basis of these exhibits only. Pre-seen information, as I told you, is the background, it's the foil, it's not the ultimate thing on which your answers have to be based. A lot of students over the past so many quarters have made this mistake where they overanalyze the pre-seen, they try to predict too many question areas based on the pre-seen, and then later on they are not able to tackle the questions in the exam. They think what they believe should be the question, they don't read the requirement, they don't pay attention to the exhibit, and they lose marks. So if you want to do that, please make sure, if you want to secure good marks in the paper, your focus should not be only on the pre-seen, it has to be on other elements, the exhibits more so. See, nobody expects you to know in depth about the industry. You are not supposed to do any research which is outside the framework of the data given in the question. You should avoid focusing extra on the pre-seen material. Your focus should be on getting the concepts together. You should avoid doing question speculation, because what happens is now a certain bias creeps into your answer writing. The question might have asked you something else altogether, but you have formed an expectation in your mind. So when you go to the examination hall, you only go with that expectation. Kini, they are going to ask me advantages and disadvantages of XYZ. Now the question might be on risks and opportunities, but you have thought about advantages and disadvantages, and you end up writing that. So do not do not create that expectation of questions by speculating that this might come and this will not come. That would be the biggest disservice that you do to yourself. When you are preparing for the SBL, see, the first 20-25 sessions that we have, those are going to be discussing several concepts like leadership, culture, uh, risk, and integration of, online marketing, and then digitalization and internal audit, and so many different aspects of the business will be studied. So first of all, for the first 25 days, 20-25 days, don't focus on how to write the answer. Let's focus on getting the questions in your head in one place, the concepts in your head in one place, and then of course we can tackle the questions as they come. See, there are roughly around 40 to 45 different models that we can shortlist in your SBL syllabus. I'll be giving you a separate booklet specifically based on that. Make sure that you go through all the models. It will be summarized in one place. Let's make sure that we work on developing the professional skills. And see, the syllabus is very, very easy. Okay, it's not tough. In fact, it doesn't merit a lot of explanation beyond the point. So let's make sure that we summarize everything in one place, we study everything properly, and then we go to the examination hall. I'm telling you, SBL is a subject which can be mastered if you have the right mindset. So go ahead with that thought process instead of rote learning, or any of those approaches. Those won't work here. Okay, so that's one part. That's how the SBL paper will look like in your exam. Now, along with this, when you are preparing, before you go to write the answers, or before you even get into understanding the syllabus, it's necessary to know what is the expectation of this particular subject, which I think we have summarized in one place right now. You will get these slides in the drive folder, so you can download it from there at any point in time. Okay, now what I am going to discuss with you is basically a background. So the way we'll go about it is, we'll discuss each concept, we'll discuss the different models, and with each question type that we attempt, or each topic that we study, I'll also be giving you a list of questions that have been asked in the past exams. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. I will show you one sample and you will get this after each paper. So don't worry. Just a moment. Let me show you what I have prepared, and you will get it for all the topics, don't worry. So what I have done is I have put together, say for example, the first topic that I'm covering is leadership and culture. I have put together different questions that came from the specimen exam, and this I have collected from the ACCA website. Also, I have made a list of common themes that you can expect in each topic, and I have looked at the past examination papers, the tasks given there, and I have made a list of questions pertaining to that particular topic. So in September 23 exam, this is the question that had come. So I have made a list of that. So this will help you to gain an understanding of what exactly is the SBL exam question type all about. Okay. With this, I'll stop with the introduction of the paper. I think all of that is very, very clear to you. The session from tomorrow onwards will be focusing on individual chapters. So we'll be starting with leadership and culture for tomorrow. I hope that is fine with everyone. If you have any questions, you can message me on 7709041555. The link to join the WhatsApp group is in the description box. And if you want the notes, you will have to join the WhatsApp group where the notes will be shared. So thank you so much and looking forward to seeing you all again for leadership and culture discussion.